Well, friends, good morning. And the focus of today's subject on the webinar is Supplier Relationship Management. Some people do call vendor relationship management also. The difference is very semantic, I could call it. I'm sure you must be aware, those who are using ERP, we call the company as a vendor once they have got the business with us. We call them as a vendor. But till they have not done the business with us, we call them a supplier. So before doing a business, we call them as a supplier, but once they are registered, again I'm saying those who are working with us on SR ERP, they call them as a vendor. So we could also call as a vendor relationship management. Some people also call as strategic relationship management. So there are different interpretations, but in general I would call as, in my presentation, SRM means Supplier Relationship Management. Now the key objective is, how do I tap my supplier base? All of you have suppliers, or vendors you may call them. Some of you may have 10,000 vendors, some may have 5,000, some may have hundreds. How do I tap them? Because all the suppliers have enough knowledge about their product. How do I get the information to make it much more innovative outcome? So that is what we are going to talk about. How do we tap it? Am I going to tap all the suppliers? Or am I going to only deal with those which are very strategic to me? So that's what discussion is going to be there around what strategy I need to work it around. Now suppliers normally, when I say, just see procurement as just negotiating. You go to a supplier says, the role of the procurement person they think as a negotiator. The guy is only able to negotiate. That is not, that means it means it's the person, the buyer is not involved at the real business. It is only up to negotiation stage. So the moment you are negotiated, you make a PO, you are off the screen. Then supplier is dealing with the production people, supplier is dealing with the real users, but not with the procurement person. So in such situations, supplier normally doesn't become very proactive. Once they have got a business, they are not very proactive. And along with that, they don't really come out with suggestions or innovations around. So in the subject of SRM, we're trying to focus how do we could get much more relationship with the supplier. And if you look around in the last decade, I think all over the world, a lot of outsourcing is going on. Some activity which I used to do in-house, some production which we were doing in-house, now we think, why should I do it? Let me focus on my key areas around where I'm strong and try to get more and more items from outside. I've seen the companies who are dealing with particularly automobile. So when I see 2 decades back or 3 decades back, majority of them were dealing with having the vertical integrations. A lot of parts were made within the companies. But now majority are saying, guys, I should get all the parts and I should only assemble it. In short, my sheet metal components are coming from outside, castings are coming from outside. So everything is coming ready-made and I'm only putting up the bolts and nuts to assemble the vehicle. So the value addition within the factory is only 25–30%. So if that type of supply chain is coming around, your dependence on supplier becomes very much crucial. Your quality, your delivery, everything depends on supplier. So once it is becoming so much dependent on supplier, relationship becomes very crucial. Let me also touch, like last session, you guys, some of you must have attended, we talked about strategic sourcing. So in a strategic sourcing, we say, guys, these are my key spend areas, very important areas, high values, critical items, and I make a long-term arrangement with suppliers. Yes, but once you make a long-term arrangement with the supplier, I have made a long-term supply arrangement for providing me, let's say, an automobile company. I make a long-term arrangement with someone who gives me the sheet metal component, who give me the dashboards. Someone gives me, let's say, the engine. Somebody gives me the filters. I made a whole year contract for the next 2 years. Fine. Now the contract I have made, but if I'm not doing a good contract management, the benefits will start dropping down. So the purpose of strategic sourcing could drop down. I may get a benefit of 10 to 15%, but if I'm not doing a good contract management, in spite of a good strategic sourcing, the benefits will start going down. Normally it is said that the benefits which comes out of strategic sourcing could come to again level 0 in next 18 months. So the next question comes, how do I keep my supplier motivated that my benefits are going up and up? So from that angle, the supplier relationship management comes up. That means you have to build a relationship. You have to go one step further than strategic sourcing. So strategic sourcing was one step, but if you want to get more benefits from the supplier, you have to go one step further to make a relationship. It is the same thing like in your personal life also. If you are very close with someone, you have built up a partnership with someone, the results will accrue much better than just having a long-term arrangements. So it goes one step than strategic sourcing. This is what we're going to talk about. So with this now, let me now walk through with you guys. Now the today's agenda, my friends, is what is supplier relationship management? Why SRM? Why should I go for SRM? Some people may also call VRM, as I said to you, vendor relationship management. What's the roadmap for the future? How do I deal with them? I've got 10,000 suppliers. Am I going to deal with all relationship with all 10,000 or few selected ones? What strategies I'm going to follow around? What are the opportunities around? If I do all this, what benefits I get? What opportunities are for me? There are challenges also. So opportunities don't come without challenges. And then we are going to talk about develop and manage effective SRM. I build up a relationship with, let's say, 40 suppliers. How do I manage it? That they remain motivated to work with us. And then the supplier performance evaluation. But keep in mind, relationships are not long-term. You may keep it for 3 years, 4 years, and then you find some new suppliers have come up in the markets. New vendors have come up in the market. And their technology level is much better than the existing one. So naturally, then you would like to have an exit strategy for the existing one and use the next ones. Let me come to the definitions part. Now, ISM definition is the practice, we call SRM as a practice and a process of interacting with supplier. How do I interact with supplier? To get a long-term value. Then Wikipedia has come up to maximize the values. How do we manage the interaction? And the purpose of interaction is to maximize the value and minimize the risk. So value is a little bit one step more than the cost reduction. A traditional procurement person, we always talk about reduction of cost, reducing the price. But here we're talking of not the cost or the price. We're saying, guys, we have to improve the values. Go one step more than that. So value creation is the bottom line, plus reducing the risk around. The University of Colorado has said around, and their focus is also on that, they go beyond the price. And this term, as I've explained to you, SRM started around a decade back. Some people are calling supplier relationship management, some are calling vendor relationship management, some are calling strategic relationship management. So in the case when I say SRM, I'm dealing with all the supplier, whatever are in my supplier base, I'm segmenting them with whom to make close friendship, with whom to keep at arm's length, with whom to develop some allies, With someone I have a partnership, and some people also call it a strategic relationship management. Strategic means I'm only dealing with the strategic suppliers, not all. So that's the way definition moves around. Now again, the same definition, I've clarified it. I am sure it's clear by now. It's a concept of principles, processes, and tools. Now, traditionally what we have been doing around, SRM has been a very separate process. In many companies I've seen around, they think, oh, supplier relationship management, we need a person who come with a sociology backgrounds, keep a relationship with suppliers who are very good. It used to be a separate function. So you have a strategic sourcing done by the procurement and supply people, demand management, obviously based on the demand you're doing your procurement planning, you're buying, packing, the whole P2P, procurement to pay. These processes were clubbed together, but relationship management was kept out of it. But now the concept is that it has to be integrated. That means you're doing strategic sourcing, you're doing P2P, you're doing demand management, SRM, all are clubbed together. So SRM is not a standalone function, it's a part of it around. Now let's get back the bigger picture of supplier. All of you know, when we talk of supplier, the first game starts from supplier selection. We evaluate the supplier. Then we do strategic evaluation for those suppliers which I'm going to have a long-term relationship. If it's a one-time deal, it's a different ball game. But if I'm going to have a long-term deal, that means I need a strategic evaluation. Then once they become my strategic supplier, I want to develop them. I want to work with them. I want to share my strategy with them. I want to share my day-to-day information with them. It's a two-way. I mean, I also want supplier to share with me what changes we can bring in our product around. And at the end of the day, some suppliers will go with you. Some will not like to put much investment on the capital side. Some will not change with the technologies. You will like to phase out them. So that's how it phases out. Supplier evaluation, certifications, you are all well aware. There are different criteria for that. But then the question comes, criteria could be financial strength, could be managerial strength, could be technical strength, which I'm sure you're all aware of it. But at the end of the day, we give them certification. We certify them. And that certification is a process for evaluating the quality system of the key suppliers in an effort to eliminate incoming inspection. I'm sure when I look back, my timings, 30 years back, 40 years back, in Tata's, we used to get the items coming from private sectors. Suppliers are giving us. Every item has to go through inspection. You can imagine, it's a duplication of task. If supplier is reliable, if supplier is certified, then I should be able to use the item as it is. If supplier is following the same norms of certification or inspection as the way we do it, the item, the moment it comes from supplier, I should be able to fix it straight on my end product. So this is where we're going to talk about the supplier certification. And then also we're talking of supplier developments. Those suppliers with whom we feel they are going to be my long-term relationship, which are going to take care of my critical items. And critical item mean without that, my whole thing can stop, come to an end. Now you identify the critical suppliers from a cross-functional team. Cross-functional mean that one person, let's say from design, one from productions, one from procurements, one from finance. You have a cross-functional team. And this cross-functional team works with supplier. You meet the top management of the suppliers, identify the projects, develop the agreements, and then try to help them to improve their capacities. Now let's look at the whole procurement life cycle management. If you go traditionally, Initially, the first step was strategic sourcing, which we covered in the last webinar. So the purpose of the strategic sourcing was to capture the value. But capturing means you have made a long-term arrangement with a supplier. Supplier is very convinced that, okay guys, I'm going to have business for next 2 years. But you are not able to secure until you are having risk management. So you also need a risk management because you're depending on one supplier and the supplier is based in some other countries. That country gets, let's say, flood or something. The delivery is not able to happen. Your assembly line comes to a stop. To avoid the disruption of the assembly line, you need a risk management also. So strategic sourcing was one step forward to capture the value. Not to secure the value, you need a risk management. Then if you want to assure the values are coming on a consistent basis, you need a contract management. So the contract management is assuring the values. Now next comes enhancing it. I'm sure the contract management, let me come back again. Suppose you give a contract to someone, you don't supervise it, you don't oversee it. The guy takes it for granted. The value which were ensured in the beginning will start going downward. So contract management is very critical. In the contract management, you are ensuring the job will be done in due time, as per the specs, as per the requirements. So that is what is assuring the value. The next comes the performance management. You have put some yardstick for the performance. You have put down some performance indicators. And if you are checking those performance indicators, the job is done based on those performance indicators. You are enhancing the values. And the last one is coming at SRM, which is adding extra value on this when you come to relationship. So this is how you can see the whole chain of the life cycle of the procurement, starting from strategic sourcing, going to risk management, going to contract management, performance, and SRM. Personally, I will call performance management as a subset of SRM. So performance management you could treat as a subset of SRM. And this is the one which is adding additional values. So SRM, let's look at this way. You have a bigger chain. All of you are very well aware of CRM, Customer Relationship Management. The business starts from there. You have tons of retailers. You're building up a relationship with them. On the other side, so this is the demand side. If you look on the supply side, the supply and demand has to match. So on the demand side, you have a CRM. On the demand side, you have SRM. So supplier relationship management is trying to get the goods from various manufacturers. Look at the e-commerce companies, whether it's a Flipkart, whether it is Snapdeal, whether this. So one side is purely CRM, the demand. Other side is supplier relationship management. And in between comes the inventory. So in short, if I look around a typical model of an e-commerce company, you need an inventory, you need a demand on the one side, and supply on the other side. So supplier relationship management is as critical as CRM. The way we talk about it, how to manage the customers, same way it is also equally important to manage supplier. If I'm not knowing how to manage my supplier, you can imagine the whole line will get disrupted. So demand side, they will not be able to get the goods what they want. So this is how it clarifies a little bit much more what SRM is there on. So SRM is also about giving a visibility. So once you build up the relationship, you're trying to know your supply base, you're trying to increase your visibility also. The visibility starting from the supplier, not the supplier at the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, you can go around. So starting from that, going up to the real users, the whole chain is visible to you. Now the procurement patterns can be analyzed, anticipated, sourcing cycles can be compressed, and collaboration can take place in real time. Now the result of in-lasting relationship with suppliers that have proven their ability to deliver the value. That's how it will go on. Now this gives you the building blocks of SRM. So when we talk of supplier relationship management, the building blocks are, first thing, I must be able to know what is my supply base. That's the very first step, is to know the supply base. Let's say if I'm in a company, in any company around Agwat, I remember in my timing in the UN, we used to have 60,000 suppliers. Small company may have 101. The big company, the medium-sized company may have 10,000, 5,000. Let's say a supplier base. Now that supplier base, I have to segment it. So the segmentation means I'm putting into 2 by 2 matrix which suppliers are critical, which supplier are leverage ones, which are routine, and which are bottleneck. I'll explain in the next slide, subsequent slides around the segmentation part. So the segmentation is the very first thing. After you've done the segmentation, you need a support from the top. And the sponsorship should be there around, they should support it. Then we start saying, okay, now who is going to govern it? Who is going to manage the supplier relationship with the critical items, suppliers? The one which are dealing with the routine item, who is going to manage the relationship? So we try to work out the governance part. Next comes the supplier engagement process. How do I engage the suppliers? Then the matrix, performance indicators. So we also have performance indicators. Guys, as you saw in the procurement lifecycle management, performance management is very important. In the performance management, you can't measure until you put the criteria. You can't tell a supplier that you're doing a good job or a bad job. It has to be with a benchmark. So there has to be matrix. Then people skills. Because here we're talking of relationship. So relationship means the people must be very good on interpersonal skills around. And the next one in the building block is technology, technology, technology. If we want visibility, I've got 10,000 suppliers. Some are doing good job, some are doing bad job. It is the only technology which can give me the visibility. It can give me the dashboard. And the dashboard, the morning when I come to my office, I start which suppliers are performing as per the benchmark, which suppliers are not performing as per the benchmark. The technology can answer. If we have to do with our manual systems, if you have a small supply base, you can with Excel and this. But if your supply base is bigger, you really need a wonderful technologies around. So technology is the base around. So that shows the importance part of it. Next comes why SRM. Sometimes supplier relationship management is required because we are not very clear with our expectation. In spite of all the good specification, good details, we miss out some time in the contract. And the supplier could take the benefit of it. In those situations, if you have a relationship, supplier knows very well that I delivered 6 months back like this. So even if you have missed out something, supplier is aware of your expectation. So supplier will do a good job. Not mutually beneficial. And sometimes we have made a contract by cutting down the cost. It becomes like a lose and win situation. The guy has got the business, but if supplier has got that, okay, we are going to work as partners, we are going to be ally. In those situations, supplier feels confident that I am a future partner with this company. It becomes more like a win-win. SRM helps that way around. Again, the buyer's multi-supplier environments. Miscommunication sometimes happens. Again, that miscommunication can be covered through relationship. Poor governance, that can also be covered by SRM. Poor cultural fit, I'm buying from a country, I don't know the languages of the countries. I'm not aware of the cultural part. But if I'm having a long-term relationship and we have done business together, we don't speak the same language, but still the relationship can bridge that cultural gap around. Lack of coordinated management. So all these gaps, what you're finding around they can be bridged through SRM. Now the supplier categories which we have around normally, I don't know how many of this one you are using it. The very first one is we call approved supplier. You have eligibility criteria of the suppliers. Eligibility criteria could be the financial strength, technical strength, managerial strength, the type of technical quality requirements around. If they pass through that, you approve the supplier. You have approved them, but doesn't mean they get the business next day. Then slowly they get the business. Then you say, guys, oh, this guy is doing a good job. I'm happy with it. They meet expectation. You call them as a preferred supplier. Then the next chain comes with the partner supplier. You build up them with a long-term relationship. That's what you did in the strategic sourcing. So they become your partner supplier. Then the next step comes the certified supplier. So when I say certified means the items are coming from that supplier and I'm using it as it is. I'm not doing another inspection on it. Otherwise it becomes extra layer of function. Pre-qualified suppliers, many of you know very well when we do civil works, they have to be pre-qualified. Certifiable supplier. I mean, they are not being certified, but they are close to being certified. You all know disqualified, when we disqualify them, and debarred supplier. So some suppliers are debarred because they are not meeting your expectation. That's what we call them as debarred supplier. Now here the broad segmentations starts from very basic relationship, goes up to strategy. Now let me put down the relationship going from the transactional relationship going up to strategic alliance. So transaction is the one which I'm sure all of you are very conversant. You do the bidding exercise, you evaluate the offers, you give a contract. That contract could be one time, and mostly you will find in the public sector very often. In the government, in the private sector also, only once you're doing one time piecemeal contract. Okay guys, one time. We keep arm's length. You don't become very close friendship with them. And it is purely driven by cost. Because I know next time I may or may not give a contract to this guy. It's a purely transitional relationship. Other extreme, when you look around the strategic alliances, we call long-term relationship. Mutual benefits. So we want a win-win situations. Open communications. Joint planning. We plan together. If I'm going to make 10,000 pieces of air filters, supplier is going to supply me some parts for that. So we have a joint planning around. Shared risk. Risks are combined, rewards are combined. So we have become really good partners. So win and loss is all shared together. The rewards are shared together. The risk is shared together. Cross-organizational team. So the teams are also working together with the suppliers. You will find very common this thing in Japanese companies around. Go to Toyotas, Hondas. The relationship with the suppliers are very strategic. They work together. And the top management is involved now. So there are two extremes around, transition, strategic, and in between could be alliances around. Now here comes, so core principle of SCM is that not all relations are created equal. So in a supply chain management, we normally say the core principle is all relations are not equal. Naturally, you can't deal if I've got a company with 12,000 suppliers, I can't treat them equal. One is very critical to me. If the item doesn't come from the suppliers, my whole assembly line will stop. Think of a company like Dell buying the chip part coming from Intel. So the relationship is very critical. Without that, the whole line could get disrupted. So that's a different type of relationship. Then I'm also buying from my, say in Dell, for assembling this one, I'm buying nuts and bolts or screws, which are standard nuts and bolts. The relationship is different. So you have to keep in mind the relationship would be different. So again, transactions are driven by need to efficiently conduct operations, while strategic alliances are to create a long-term mutually beneficial relationship, win-win relationship. That's what we look at, where we share the risk and rewards. I mean, this picture I think is very self-explanatory. People have confusion between alliance and a partnership. The word alliance came from the World War time. So here you can see the Churchill. So it's again from the alliance. We say this country is ally of so and so. So allying means you're sharing one bench in this picture. You're sharing the cigarettes. Or in the villages you'll find sharing the hookahs. That's alliance. But does not mean the partnership. The partnership is very extreme. That means loss and profit we share together. Alliance is we have a common thinking. We are just becoming ally. We are not keeping at distance. So you got one is a very transactional relationship, arm's length. Strategic means you become very close, and then in between is the ally part, alliance part. So you have common things, common plan, common everything. Same thing I've tried to put down in this way. If your level of specs are very, very specific, you want to buy a paper, very clear. I want 80 grams per square meters. I want white paper as per ISO standards. Size is A4, very specific. Or even if you want to buy a laptop, computers, table, chairs, very specific standards, you could go with the arm's length relationship. But if your specifications are not very clear, so level of specs are very general, complexity is also very high. So those cases where I'm working for, let's say Space Center, I'm working for something very complex, specifications are very complex. In those cases, you try to make a partnership with the supplier. So partnership is a one side extreme, arm's length is other side. In between are all allies depending on the scope around. So this relationship approach that you have seen the continuum. So you will put different emphasis depending on with whom you are dealing. Now ways of promoting good relationship. So when we say now relationship is very, very important to us. I mean, I would say this is becoming more popular with the private sector. In the public sector, still we keep at arm's length because sometimes people think that relationship could breed into corruptions. So they keep at arm's length around. But in the private sector, we encourage it because that's the way to survive. We work as a partner, we work as a team. Now the top management meetings are there, which is very important around if you want to promote the relationship. And their functions also, we try to build up some relationship. Timely payment is very, very critical. If supplier is working for me, 80% of the deliveries only to me, and if I'm not able to make payment, supplier is not able to make payment to their own staff, relationship could get sour. Equitable treatment of suppliers. So we treat them as our own colleagues. We don't treat them like a mat, foot mat around. I don't treat them as an arm's length again. Periodic supplier survey. This is very important around. So we try to do the periodic supplier survey. Are they working in an efficient way? Are they able to cope up with the changes in technologies? Are they working in still old-fashioned way? And if they don't cope up with the need of yours, naturally then you will have to phase out. Now coming back to the SRM implementation. So far what I have covered around is to give you an idea about the meaning of SRM, why SRM. So once you've understood why SRM, the scope of the SRM, now comes the implementation of SRM. How do we implement? What are the strategies behind it? So this is what I'm going to cover up in. Segmentation is the very first thing. Segmenting the suppliers, what you have, into different groups. Screening the suppliers. Then trying to make a team members within your own organizations. Training the peoples. That's what we covered earlier. Supplier developments. So you train the suppliers. You also need to train your team as well, so that they are well aware how to deal with the X supplier or Y supplier. Technology to supplement the process toolkit. Lastly is performance management. How do we manage the performance of the suppliers around? So this is where the very big thing comes up. The guy who was a key person for promoting supply chain management, his name was Peter Kraljic. He came with the concept of supply positioning. And this came up in 1982. So he said, okay, let me divide the whole procurement into 4 areas. On x-axis, I've got expenditure. Y-axis is all the risk. The risk means, if no risk mean N mean no. L mean less, medium and high. If I've got many choices around, the risk is very low. But if I've got too many less choices around, obviously I've got only one supplier, my risk is very high, H. So that is from N to H you can divide between, depending on the number of supply sources. Expenditure is shown. We're trying to follow 80-20 concepts here. You can divide into 4 boxes: critical, leverage, routine, bottleneck. So routine items may be, routine and bottleneck could be 80% of the items around, but value-wise 20%. And if I look only routine alone, will not be more than 10%, and bottleneck maybe another 10% in terms of the value. Leverage, so if 10 and 20 is gone, 10 plus 10 is gone 20, then I'm left up with 80% of the values between critical and leverage. But the number-wise is only 20%. So leverage could be, let's say, 55% or 60%. Critical could be 20 or 25%. The percentage could vary from company to company. If I'm working in a pharma, the ratio could be different. I'm working in automobile, could be different. So if in a chemical company, could be different. So it's everything around. So you divide all your areas around, commodities around, criticals, leverage, routine, bottleneck. And the suppliers which are behind it, so those suppliers which are coming into the critical zones, they're very strategic to me. So the relationship with them will be totally different. The leverage relationship would be different, and relationship with routine would be different, and bottleneck would be different. Now this was the one we did around dividing the whole supply base into 4 boxes. Now let's also look around the perception of the supplier. You also have to understand how supplier perceives you. Supplier looks you at marginal. Come on, it's a low values, 5%, and you're a very small part of their business. They look you as if they want to exploit it because they know very well this is the area where I can make big savings. They also want to be part of your core, and the bottleneck item they want to help you in developing it. So that's the perception side. Okay, we can move on. Now, segmentation of supplier, let me just give you a little more thoughts on those. Strategic means, their relationship is no exit path. You are becoming partners for next 2 years, 3 years, even 5 years. Complex relationship and resource intensive. In the case of leverage, relationship attributes which we can call around is high volume relationship, product and service with many solutions around. So you have got many choices around, but every time you hammer on money, saving, cost saving. The routine is the one we always call as a nuisance. If you can automate it, that's what the preference is. Bottleneck is the one, some specific item, standards non-standard items. Nobody else makes it. Only one company makes it. And the value is very small, but it's a bottleneck item. Now the question always is, how can I convert the bottleneck into transactional? So you can also convert bottleneck to transactional if you can change the specs. Use standard items. So the relationship in all the four areas you can see is, in the case of strategic is, critical is strategic, leverage is we're trying to become opportunist. In the case of routine, we want to become transactional, arm's length, and bottleneck is the one collaborative. Now, the competitive relationship is the one you saw in the leverage items, where we want to compete, we want to get the best value for money. That's what we call the competitive ones. Then the collaborative one, we use it for the bottleneck items, and we also use for strategic items. Strategic becomes, collaborative is a little bit alliance. And the next one which I tell you about strategic is the one where we become the partners. So both relationships are there. So it's the way we work on. Yeah. Now here is the same, again, 2x2 matrix given by the Kraljic. Strategic item means unique specs and requires partnership and alliance approach. Bottleneck means you want continuity of supply. And here again you look for collaborative relationship. In the case of non-critical item, which are routine items, you look for required systems contract, long-term contracts. So for small value item, you make a contract with someone, or you could use e-catalogs. That's a way to work on. Leverage items. This is the area where the money is enough, choices are many, you need a competitive bidding all the time. Now here again I'm trying to clarify those four boxes. When we talk of strategic, you're taking a long-term action plan. You work very closely with them in product innovations, process, joint product and process design, integrated systems. Supplier manages the product and service and consider on-site representation. So same strategic one, if you can see. So the strategic mean potential for impact is big. We have a common values, aligned goals, and proper environment. I'm going a little bit more on this particular box because that's the one is strategic relationship management. So that's the area where the potential is big for impact purpose, and we can share the values. So bottleneck item is the one where we're trying to ensure supply. Certainly you do a long-term contract. These are low values. Ensure the supplier is motivated. Look at developing the new suppliers if you can find new suppliers. And if you can develop, standardize the supply items, maybe then you get more choices around. Here is the one on the leverage side. High values, you want to leverage it, you want to make savings, you make a short-term contract. The market is changing too fast and the focus is on price, not on the relationship. Pursue a very active sourcing policies, look for continued cost reduction. Consider the use of e-auction. So e-auction is also very popular for this type of items around. So the relationship in this leverage is very short-term contracts around. So this is the one again on the routine. The focus is minimize efforts. Normally people go with the e-catalog. Items could be office supplies, item could be desktop, laptop, those low values items, standard item. So in short, again, I'm trying to summarize the relationship between transactional versus relationship. So if you look at the transactional relationship, the focus is on short, discrete procurements. Relationship is to retain the supplier. It's a long term. Transactional is short term. Transactional is arm's length. Relationship is more like a partnership, is a closeness. It's a simple buyer-seller relation, and there it is complicated, including internal relationship. Here the focus is on innovations, while in the transaction innovation is not there. You can think of a company like Apple, where most of the parts are coming from outside. Literally every part is coming from outside because they don't have their own manufacturing. And sometimes they use supplier design. So naturally the supplier innovation is very important to us. Moderate supplier contract, and here is a high level of supplier contract. And the last one is very opaque, here is a very transparent. So in a relationship manner, in the partnership, you are sharing your future plan, you're sharing your production plan, you're sharing everything. Now promoting good relationship, I think we discussed earlier, so you need two-way communications, supplier training to improve the quality and performance, team building is very important, supplier development, which we discussed in earlier slides, to improve their capabilities part, and periodic business review, which is also important around. And the benefits obviously will be helping you is you can meet your objectives, you can cut down the cost, improved speed to the markets, process innovations, and achieve diversity in initiatives around. That's how I look around. Now the concepts of continuous improvements, you want the quality improvements, the cost improvement, design improvements, service improvement, cycle time reductions, and these are becoming much more important nowadays for the consumer based item. With the life cycle, let's say, of a mobile is hardly 6 months. After 6 months, the new model has to come. You really need a good partner suppliers. So the quality becomes critical, the cost becomes critical, the design becomes critical. That's how the concept of continuous improvement comes. Now the supplier performance evaluations. Now these are the factors we normally use it. One is the delivery part, quality history, how many defects per millions. They're also looking at make or buy program, the lead time, flexibilities, electronic capability, the breadth of product lines around. So are they able to cope up with our whole complete product line or not? In spite of all the good relationship, some suppliers don't change with the time. So naturally then you have to come up with an exit strategy. Some new suppliers have come up with the better technologies. The market is changing, the market is evolving. So some will go, some will come, that process will go on. So there has to be a very good exit strategies around, and this must be part of your terms and conditions. You must have internal consideration. These can be stakeholders, timings, documentations, and then external consideration could be the liabilities part, supplier inventory becoming obsolete. Supplier is keeping inventories, but that inventories become obsolete. Now you're switching over to new supplier. The maturity level of whole SRM. So you have building up SRM, then you want to check your maturity level. Are we at the top? Are we the center of excellence for maturity? Are we at the very basic level? So the level 1 shows no formal supplier relationship management program. Level 2 shows one or more SRM programs at a business unit level. Risk management and all those things are there. Level 3 is the one at the enterprise level. And the next level 4 is you have supplier agreements are aligned with the client agreements, collaboration activities, the behaviors, and SRM programs are integrated with key supplier reciprocal SRM system. So you have 4 levels around. Level 1 is very basic, and level 4 is the one advanced one I would call as the center of excellence one. Now coming back to summary the whole thing, the keys. Now when I look at SRM is going through changes. I mean, gone are the days when simply managing spend and finding the best deal possible with your supplier base is enough. So finding a deal is not good enough. You have to build relationship, and that relationship also you have to evolve. You have to manage them. If they're not keeping in pace with you, you have to get the exit out of them and get new relationship. Now, the key secrets for the meaningful relationship I would look around is focus on relationship, trust, and collaboration. This is also equally important. The trust is required. You work in a collaboration way and relationship. And your relationship should be very transparent. If supplier is not changing with the time, then you should be able to honestly tell the guy that your products are not meeting our expectations. So the next one is the win-win situations, delivers big opportunities, and technology can simplify the process around. That's what we need to also emphasize on it. Now, the elements of successful relationship, I will look around. Focus. We need to have a common vision. If supplier is supplying me with the key critical item, we need to have a common vision of relationship, strategies and activities. We have a trust, and trust comes with communication. It comes with communication and disclosure of the business drivers. If my business motive is different, their business motive is different, they want to become overnight rich at the cost of the buyer, the trust has to build up. Performance, we need KPIs, key performance indicator. People, clearly defined roles and responsibility has to be there around. And then the proactive approach and profit at risk. And establishing real metrics to drive the behavior of the both parties. So we really need those metrics as well. So well friend, with this, I won't say the project, SRM webinar is over. This starts a new beginning, understanding it. So the game journey starts actually now. So I would request if any questions you have, you're welcome. And before I open the question answer, we're also launching the poll. We have put down 2 questions this time. So the question 1 is, do you have a stated intent to do more in the area of SRM?